is in such a hurry to get here. I'm so busy at work. I'd meant to bring some wine, but it just didn't happen. So for all those winos out there, celebrate. Oh, Elio has wine. See, he's the best. The Fiesta Media is the best in the business. You don't do your podcasting here. It's just not. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, his thinking
it's like a tree in the forest.
If you can't figure out what to say, I'll liquor you up, and then you can go from there.
God knows
wind
what'll
you up
come
and
out
you'll
of
go
your
from
mouth.
there. Speaking of liquor, though, later, please, before this is over, I have to tease some information for next week that I haven't even told you about.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm not kidding.
Please
I'm
don't
waiting
forget.
to the end. I'm going to watch until the end.
That's right.
Positive quote of the day. Life always offers you a second chance. It's called Tomorrow by Dylan Thomas, whoever that is. But anyway.
Who that is.
So I want to introduce our guest today because we have a really special guest, and I'm so glad he's here to share with us a lot of awesome things. Dr. Michael Lizardo, who is with Shantz, I actually just met him. So, and I on purpose said, you know what? I want you to tell us all about you on the show. I don't want to know anything about you. So, Michael, welcome. Dr. Lizardo.
Hey, thanks for having me. Mike is fine.
So Mike is fine. Okay, good. Thank God.
Yeah. That's a heck of an introduction.
So, tell us about what you do. I know you said you're a doctor with Shantz. Yep. Tell us a little bit about that, and we'll go from there. We'll start there.
So I'm in the College of Medicine. I'm in the what's called the Division of Infectious Disease and Global Medicine, but where my main role is with Emerging Pathogens Institute. And just like the name sounds, so we've had a pretty significant role with COVID on campus over the past 15 months.
COVID.
I have too. It's a bad thing. Bad thing.
Yeah.
So I've been involved with that effort on the UF campus and also with the community as well. So that's been kind of what's been driving things lately. And my life before COVID was doing global health and public health related things, and still part of my clinical practice at the university, but then also through the Department of Health and doing tuberculosis control and other global health related things.
Wow.
He's really smart.
Yeah. Talk about adding a little legitimacy
to
the clown show that is this podcast on a regular basis.
A notch.
Yeah.
So do you have any questions, first of all?
I mean, I do. I have a lot.
Right.
Sure.
Can I start?
Yeah.
All right. So you got your office must have been inundated with what to do and how to handle policies and procedures at UF, right? Over the course of the last year.
So early on, our group and I was tasked with helping develop what's called the UF Health Screen, Test, and Protect program, which is the plan and the program to get the university open after it had closed after the start of the pandemic, and then also how to keep it open. So in other words, what type of policies, procedures, testing, surveillance, all the different things in place. So tasked to kind of put together a team to do all that, and have a fantastic team, great people that have just done some heroic work over the past 15 months. But that was kind of our responsibility, and been able to kind of run through with that.
For the university or the medical, like UF, the medical side, or both?
Yeah, so again, it's a big beast, so there's a lot of parts to it. Mostly for the main campus component. There was a whole separate piece at the Health Science Center, but there's a lot of overlap. Played a role with them as well, but there are very specific things related to the hospital and the Health Science Center, but we overlapped that part that is part of the university. So we kind of, our policies worked, and we kind of shared everything in terms of what we ended up doing. But really our focus was get university, our sort of enterprise-wide sort of policies that kind of made sense as best we could.
Do you, how much of what you did and the responses that you're either made or are continuing to make or changes is based on, because this is, people have been talking about a potential pandemic for a long time.
For a long time, but I think in reality, it's we've said this at least once a day. It almost seems for the past 15 months is that we were flying the plane while we were building it.
Yeah.
Right. So you can plan for pandemics, and there are a lot of pandemic preparations. There's whole careers that are dedicated towards pandemic preparedness and the education related to that. But most of what we did is applied what we knew from other general public health principles. For me, it was tuberculosis control and kind of my background in epidemiology, as well as clinical practice and my training as a pulmonologist, to just apply that to what we knew. And again, get-togethers with others and kind of learn as we go along, and then kind of just build that whole process. And as much as we can, use the evidence that we've got and also communicate it. I mean, that's hard, because there are things that we're learning and we're communicating it as we go along. And as you guys know, we were kind of talking about before the show, in terms of, it's a tough time to be a sort of a public figure, quote unquote, an expert. This is a very challenging time in our history as a country, and it's just made that all the more difficult, I think.
Okay, so in general, and this opinion is going to be, obviously, it could be better, could be worse, but in general, do you like where we are as a community like Gainesville or Alachua County? How do you feel about where we are as a community compared to maybe some other places?
Yeah, I think compared to other places, I say that before all this, I loved Gainesville. I would say I love Gainesville even more now. Gainesville, Alachua County, this is a special place, and I can say that with all my heart. I mean, you just, because when we, for example, just use one example to help sort of illustrate things, is when we started our vaccine effort throughout campus. We didn't just focus on campus, it's the whole community, because we partnered with the local health department, get as many people vaccinated as we were allowed to as the vaccines rolled out. The operation that we built to vaccinate campus and the rest of the community, and anybody who walked in, basically who met the criteria established by the governor at the time, that required not just our paid staff, but volunteers. And so basically lead by example and lead by casting a vision, saying we need your help. Gainesville, 1,500 volunteers or so have volunteered with us to help vaccinate the community. So in other words, they didn't care, they cared for each other. They didn't just care for themselves. And they got their vaccine and they went and helped other people get vaccinated, because really vaccination is our only way out of this. And people stood up and they did it. And again, that's just one of countless times when you just see people, and you know them from all around the community. I mean, a lot of people that I knew from personal connections and people that we do business with on our personal level, or family attorney or someone that we are financial planners and other people that we work with, they're there. They're part of the community because they care about it. And it's just not every community had that. And I think what that translated into is that when you look at vaccination rates and kind of where things are in Florida, Alachua County is at the top of the list in terms of numbers of people vaccinated across all age groups. We're in the top 3 across the state in terms of percentages. And I think that'll allow us to get back to normal faster, to get businesses back up and running, to allow us to go back to restaurants, and why we're at the place where we are and still decreasing that level of risk. Again, we still have a ways to go. There's still work to be done, and I don't think it's time to spike the ball, because we haven't quite crossed the touchdown for that winning score. And so I worry about that a little bit, but right now, where we're headed and the kind of community that we've got behind us, yeah, there's problems, and yes, there's folks that I kind of want to still work on a little bit there, and it's been a very humbling experience, just learning as fast as we can. But this is a great place to live, work, study. I love it here, and I think there's a really good reason for that. And I'm getting paid $0 to say that.
So are we.
Visit Gainesville did not sponsor
that's
any
right.
of
That's
that.
right. No, it's just I mean, you can't. I mean, think about it. That's a measurable percentage of the population just volunteered because we needed help.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And it's a big deal.
This town's always been, I think, has a huge heart. Always wanted to help one another. This is a great example of that.
Yeah.
I wonder. We talked a little bit about this before it started, but obviously you're a scientist. You're going to follow the science.
Yeah.
We both own local businesses who do a lot of B2B work. So we work with other local businesses, whether it's in advertising or insurance purposes. And so it was tough for us as business owners over the course of the last year, and so many people that we talk to on a regular basis really struggled. And you're in a very unenviable position, I would think, as somebody who's trying to dictate policy from a science perspective, when there's got to be push and pull from people saying, how do we do this? And I can't even imagine what
I could tell you stories. And I prefer the term develop policy, not dictate. Did
I say dictate?
Yeah, okay,
that's all right.
Develop. I'm
develop.
a little sensitive.
Yeah, no, much better word.
No, but I hear what you're saying, and I think that, to me, the approach that we try to take is first, it's humility, right? There's a lot of stuff we don't know. And just treat people like adults. Right? It's only a small percentage of the population that doesn't act like an adult, right? That kind of gets all, but it's just treat people like adults, tell them what you know, tell them what you don't know, and tell them what you hope to know, and tell them, guys, this is what's on the table.
Right.
This is the best I've got to work with, and this is where I'm at right now. I'll get back to you when I know more. This is how you can fact check where we're at. This is what other people are thinking, and I need your help to do this, because this is where we want to go. If you don't do this, this is what's going to happen, I believe. And just be honest, and just try to do that as much as you can. And it's tough, because there's a small percent, a very vocal percent, that are going to come at you no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? And there's hopefully a small percent of times you're going to be wrong. Right? You just got to own it and say, look, I got that one wrong.
Yep.
We got that one wrong, and this is why we think we got it wrong. This is what we're doing to fix that. But again, it's that gaining trust and just being calm. and trying to use evidence-based and kind of be consistent and say, this is why we're doing it, and recognizing the sacrifices people make. I think it's easy to just kind of say, hey, you got to do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
There's a price.
Yeah.
There's a price to all this stuff, and nothing exists in a vacuum. So I think if you go in and try to, and again, it's a work in progress, and this is more aspirational than affirmational. I'm not there yet. I want to be there, but it's just if you go in kind of humbly and recognize that you don't have all the answers, and that other people can be right, and it's not just your call. You just kind of will get there in the right place. And again, at the end of the day, it's going to sound crazy, but I think the real sort of secret to quality is love. If you don't love your community, if you don't love the people you're serving, how can you really be?
It's going to show.
It's going to show.
So,
great.
Is there a website that people can go to do as much research as they, that isn't so much medical terms, maybe layman's terms?
I think the ones that I recommend the most are kind of consistent. Is that, again, CDC has some, every one of their sort of pages has for medical professionals and then for general public. And so I would just recommend that people go to the CDC. I don't agree with everything that the CDC says or guidelines, and locally sometimes tweaks make sense from what you're experiencing and seeing. But as far as general knowledge and information, you got to go to trusted sources. Again, I mentioned this earlier, we're kind of living in a unique time, and I don't want to kind of go down in the ditch of some negativity, but the reality is that we live in a time when being an expert is not something that's taken for granted anymore, right? And so everybody, who's got a laptop or access to a computer pretty much thinks that somehow the 40 years of experience and training and everything that kind of goes behind this, somehow you could just Google your way out of it. But, pretty much if you're Googling, if you're kind of Googling your way to kind of develop policy, well, then you have no business making policy. There's got to be experience matters. And just, again, I don't want to get all kind of geeky on everybody, but, information and knowledge are two very different things. I can get any information just like any one of us can in an instant. But you can't get knowledge. And knowledge is context. Knowledge is experience. Knowledge is, I'm going to put my neck out on the line because we don't know the answers to this, and information isn't enough, but someone has to make a decision. That's knowledge, and that's something you can't figure out. And I think to some extent that it still exists. So if if a loved one gets cancer, or you need to get your gallbladder taken out, you're not going to go on YouTube and do it in your garage, right? So you're not going to try to figure that out. But
we did not do that for your gallbladder, right?
No,
we did not do that in the garage.
No. The second time maybe, not the first time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But my point there is that again, it's like there's still some hope of expertise in some of these more vague things. People just want to go that route, and it becomes politicized, and people do that. But just again, I get the trust thing. I understand the erosion of trust, but people just have to kind of step back, lay off social media for a little while, kind of get out of the algorithms that are kind of spinning out there that kind of make you surround yourself with people that think exactly like you and are kind of going down that same crazy road to make you think that somehow something crazy is being done and that you can't trust anybody. I mean, it's like
it's a very
it's a tough time.
We did talk about this briefly when we were kind of getting ready to sit down. The age of how do you combat misinformation when everybody is so passionately spouting off opinions, and they're really opinion based. It's not necessarily science based or fact based. It's more feeling based, and you can't argue with feelings.
Exactly, you can't.
And so, how does somebody who's legitimately trying to do what the best that they can to develop policy in a way where they're not looked at as having an agenda or being sort of wrong, and you're right, you're going to get it wrong. Science is often wrong, but that doesn't necessarily mean you don't give your best.
And it's a process. You get to where you're going to go. Right.
The analogy of flying a plane while you're building it is a really good one, because I feel like people you can understand that. Yeah. And it's going to evolve. You're going to know more tomorrow than you will today.
Yeah,
than you
and
did
it'll
the day
get better
before.
as we go along. Yeah, and I think that's there. And I think that also you just have to realize that you don't have to please everybody. And you can't, and that you've just got to kind of put your big boy pants or big girl pants on and say, you know what, this is the right thing to do. This is what I'm basing it on, and reasonable people will follow, and you will follow reasonable people as well. And you just got to kind of just say, all right, where are we at here? And I think if you follow the same principles and that kind of idea, is just try to be objective, love the people that you're serving, regardless of how they treat you, what they're going to do. Don't have an agenda. Try to stick by the principles and love and care for them, and be humble about it. You're probably not going to go wrong at the end of the day. You're going to make mistakes, but that doesn't mean you're going to go wrong.
Love that philosophy.
And so you just got to soldier on, because you're going to get that. And I'm not going to massacre the quote, but just people can look it up if they want. But one of the things that I think criticism is very valuable, and I think it's important. No one should be held above critique or kind of being subject to being questioned or held accountable. And we all should be, especially public figures, and especially people who can influence policy who are not elected, right? So it's an emergency comes up, an expert comes up, and you can have influence, and no one voted for me, so it's just like, hey, this is, people are asking me, and it's like, I'm trying to do the best I can with what I have. So I recognize all those things. But that said, I do take some encouragement from Teddy Roosevelt, who's one of my favorite presidents, and kind of, the man in the arena speech when he kind of talked about citizens in a republic when he gave that speech in, I think, the Sorbonne in France. And this might be the only time that the Sorbonne is ever quoted on the show, is a feeling I get, but I'm going to go with it.
You're right, it will be.
I'm running with it, and it's okay. I won't be that nerdy guy, but it's relevant. But it's just that idea, and it's just kind of like, it's like, it's at the end of the day, it's like, it's like, the man or the woman that's got to make those decisions, it's like you can't worry about the critic. You just have to worry about that and then do it because it's the right thing to do. So look up the speech. I always massacre, but it's sitting on my desk, and so I won't do it justice by trying to quote it. But it's gave me a lot of encouragement, because it's really, at the end of the day, somebody's got to be helping to make those decisions, and whoever's equipped to do it needs to do it and step up. And just take the hits that come with it, and take the humbling moments, and just go.
Boy, that's hard to do, though.
One last question, because I want to talk about Kira Grace Foundation.
Yep.
Do you think that we'll ever get to herd immunity?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do. And so, again, I don't want to be sort of sarcastic here, but the reality is that, it's like, do you ever think the bleeding will stop? I'll say yes, because all bleeding stops eventually, right? So for one reason or another.
Okay, that's a bad, but it could end poorly. That could end super poorly.
Yeah,
not by the end of this year.
But we could do it. I think we could do it before then. And so, to be honest with you, right now, if we decided, and people that are on the fence decided to get vaccinated tomorrow, and just started to say, I'm going to do it now, we can get there in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're not that far. We're like 10% away.
That's interesting.
And in a place like Alachua County, you're talking about 20, 30,000 more people to get vaccinated. I mean, that's nothing. I mean, that's very, 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 very doable.
So we talked about some of the things we talk about on this show regularly, and one of them is a music scene, and there's a band that I participate in called Whiskey Jones, and this is our drummer, and he is saying 4/5 of Whiskey Jones, our band, have been vaccinated.
I like that.
So we are
80%.
Our band is part of the herd
solid
immunity.
B.
You guys are there.
That's
I like
right.
it.
Solid
And
B
the one
minus.
who isn't vaccinated, we don't really care that much about.
That's right. He could benefit from everybody else. But yeah, so my point is, I think we can get there. It's just, we as a society can choose if it's going to be June 2021, January, June 2022. It's just like we'll get there eventually, but it's just, do we want to do it now and get back to normal right away?
Yeah.
Or do we want to just kind of, sort of whistle in the graveyard and just kind of, not do it and get it done, and then just still have people that are vulnerable still dying? Because there's still hundreds of thousands of people that are in the most vulnerable age groups that have not been vaccinated in the state of Florida. I mean, there's probably more than a million or 2 million people that are 50 or older that have important risk factors that are very vulnerable that have not been vaccinated.
Let me
We
ask
need to get there.
one more question as it relates to this, because what, in your experience, what's preventing those of us who have not been vaccinated what's the number one reason they aren't?
So the tempting answer is to say, they're anti-vaxxers in this, but the reality is that that's not the case. So there's like 10 to 15% of the population that it doesn't matter what you tell them. You can walk on water there, passing out gold bars while you're passing out the vaccines, and they're not going to get vaccinated because they politically and philosophically made up their mind that this isn't going to happen.
Sure.
Don't even waste your time. And there's 40% of people, more or less, that you can put the vaccines on the other side of a lake filled with piranhas, and they are going to swim across that. They're going to get that vaccine, and I don't have to do anything to convince them. They're going to be there soaking wet with a bunch of piranha bites, and they're going to say, give me my vaccine, and they're going to do it. So that's going to happen. But what there's now is there's kind of what I call the middle 40. And those are the group of people that didn't say no. They said not yet. I'm trying to figure out, I want to see what happens, to John. It's like, I want to see if a foot grows out of his head, or I want to figure out, and things are just a lot of disinformation that's out there. And they're still susceptible because they haven't been convinced. Their doctor hasn't said, you need to get this vaccine, because even though you're not vulnerable, your grandmother is, and you can spread it to her unbeknownst to you, so just get vaccinated. Get it done, protect your community. They haven't been told that. And then other folks are thinking, I've been exposed. That's probably the most common one. I really don't need to get it. I've got immunity from that. I have to, because I've known 10 people with it. And I thought I had a cold. I didn't get tested, but I think I've got it, and I'm good. The reality is that immunity is probably not as good as the vaccine. In fact, there's more and more evidence that that's not the case. So getting the vaccine will push us all over the top, get you over the top, and the risk is so ridiculously small. The other thing is people say, I don't want to get an experimental vaccine. Science wasn't right. Science was solid. Let me just tell you that. The clinical trials, everything that was done was great. And now, we haven't given it to a few people. We've given over 300 million doses, and if something bad was going to happen, it would have happened. right? And again, there are limited times when something bad does happen, but the chance of you getting in a wreck and getting hurt, going to the store and going to Publix is greater than you having a problem with the vaccine in most instances. We all get a sore arm. Some people feel kind of crappy after getting it. I'm not going to, that happens,
sure,
and it's just a reality, but that's small price to pay. And when you look at the big picture, it's not an experimental vaccine. The FDA approval is coming. The FDA approval takes time, the full approval, because they have to show 6 months of safe production in the factories. There's other factors that go in that have nothing to do with whether or not the vaccine works or whether or not the vaccine is going to hurt an individual. So again, you take those two things off the table, and then you give people a sense of urgency and say, hey, we can get back completely to normal and you can protect grandma for good. You're set. And the other thing too is that people say, well, whoever wanted to get vaccinated can get vaccinated. It's every man, woman, or child for themselves, right? It's a choice. I get it. But if you're immunosuppressed and you got vaccinated, guess what? Your vaccine is probably not going to work as well for you as it does for anyone who isn't immunosuppressed, right? So even though you did the right thing, if I'm a jerk about it, I could still give it to you and you can still get sick. Vaccines aren't perfect. And so we make it better by reducing the spread amongst everybody else who's less vulnerable. So in other words, I'm much a believer in terms of kind of community health, it's like all for one and one for all, right? So in other words, we just help everybody out. It's the risk is like, it's so ridiculously low. I won't say nothing, but it's as darn close to nothing as we can come up with.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting. So, I know we're going to talk.
We could talk another
I know we're going to talk about other
hour.
stuff. Quick Our Town connection though with.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you've had some communication with Anthony Fauci's team, or there's some, I don't know how that works in terms of how that information gets passed down. I own a magazine here in town called Our Town Magazine.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite interns is on Anthony Fauci's communications team.
Nice.
Now she got hired with him.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah,
Great.
it's really cool.
Very cool.
So I had to get I got a letter from the FBI or something saying she put you down as
a reference.
As a reference in some way.
So you got the
Pretty
FBI in
cool.
your office?
Well,
Awesome.
again, it's happened more
right.
than once.
Well,
obviously. So.
They're regulars.
Anyways,
It's
Yeah.
clear, it's a straight path there. Yeah, no problem.
Really
no
great.
problem at all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So with the last little bit of time we have, I wanted to talk about Kira Grace Foundation and the event that you have coming up.
Yeah.
you're here for more than one reason.
Yeah,
this is great.
yeah,
This is the
multi-purpose.
perfect guest.
Embarrassingly enough, I know nothing about the Kira Grace Foundation. I don't know anything about the event, so I apologize for that. But now's my time to learn. So tell us about the foundation and the event you guys have.
I will tell you about the foundation. I will tell you that the story starts out a certain way and it ends up in a very positive way.
Okay.
So let me just kind of tell you that. So the foundation, Kira Grace Foundation, is named after my wife and I's daughter, Kira Grace, who died after having leukemia as an infant. So our family went through an unthinkable time. And so what we went through is that we actually had 2 children simultaneously diagnosed with leukemia, just literally within a few weeks apart. Our son was 4 at the time, our daughter was a year old.
Wow.
And so through that unthinkable experience, we witnessed and experienced and went through, and I have trouble believing I would have trouble believing it if I didn't go through it. Our daughter, as I mentioned, passed away, but our son survived, and we could see the hope that came from a cure. We just got back from his graduation in college up in Virginia, and we're super excited and very, very blessed to have experienced that. And that was 18 years ago now. And so we went through that. And when my wife and I went through that, we said, obviously this is an extraordinary moment. And obviously with the amount of time we have, I can go on and write books about each certain chapter of this story. It's as incredible as it kind of comes across. But what we ended up doing at that time, we felt led by our faith to say, we need to do something equally extraordinary. So what we did is that we reached out, kind of did some backgrounds. Again, the background in public health helped because we wanted to kind of get the biggest bang for the buck. So we're not, some sort of uber rich family that's kind of got, we've just got 3 houses in Palm Beach and all this other stuff. So we just said, how do we make our dollars go and move this forward? So we found a program at the time that St. Jude had that was called International Outreach. And so then we modeled ourselves with them, partnered with them, and then created the Kira Grace Foundation with the idea of getting cancer care to kids in other countries. And say, well, why is that a thing? Why does that matter? Because here's the deal, is that most people don't realize that when you're diagnosed with cancer, or your child is diagnosed with cancer in this country, that child is likely to get cured. From one of the biggest victories ever in medical science was with leukemia in children. So ALL, the form of leukemia that our son had, is in the U.S. is curable, completely curable. It's like the cure rates are like approaching 90+%.
Incredible.
So that your child gets diagnosed, it's traumatic, it's scary, it's terrifying. 10% is still a high number if you're that parent.
Of course.
But the fact that when any one of us were born, especially me, you're born with that or you're diagnosed with that as a child, you were going to die.
Wow.
And what most people don't realize is that in developing countries, that same kid would be diagnosed and would die. You know, they don't have a chance for a cure. So you have a flip. You have a 20% survival in most developing countries, and in the U.S. it's 80%.
Wow.
For all cancers in children. So it's, again, the chances are they're going to get cured. So for us, we said, why should 800 miles of salt water between my kids and their kids make a difference? And both my wife and I carried that experience of having the hope and the loss at the same time. And we can look both parents in the eyes and say, we know what you feel. And it's unthinkable, but that's powerful. And, you know, we really feel our faith is based on redemption. And so we really feel that a tragedy is a terrible thing to waste. And so with that, we created the Cure Grace Foundation now 17 years ago. And as a result of that, we've raised money to help kids, starting out in the Dominican Republic, but we've been moving into Colombia and in Brazil, coming up here, and we're going to give follow-up on that at our event here in a couple weeks. But with that, we've been able to improve cure rates with kids with cancer. We've quadrupled them. In the Dominican Republic, which is where we started. St. Jude directed us there. We built a program there and started working there. And so now the majority of kids that get leukemia that are born in the Dominican Republic live.
Wow.
And so to give you an idea, to kind of put this into real world terms, a few years ago, I got a call from our sister foundation down there, the group that we work with there locally, and she said, Mike, we have a problem. And I said, what's the problem? She goes, well, we can't have the Christmas party. I go, well, why not? She goes, there's too many kids. They have a Christmas party for the kids that are survivors every year, and there were too many kids.
What a great
That's
problem.
awesome.
I mean, that's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So it's just like you hear that, and it's just like, okay. And so again, a lot of things that we do for kids kind of makes them feel good, feels us feel good, helps ease the pain, and those are all great things.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not going to tell someone how they should grieve or how they should help or how they move forward, but these are kids. And I hate to put it this way, but just if you want to look at it in terms of a business, you guys are business guys, it's the idea is that our business is birthdays. We make birthdays. And you put a price on that kid's head, and it costs me this much to save that kid's life. That birthday cost me this much, and I can buy those birthdays. I can fix that. And so whenever you kind of, as a parent, you're sitting there saying, you know, if only kid, then, well, not as a parent, you kind of think, you know, if someday we can find a cure for cancer, that'd be great. The reality is that if your kid is cured from cancer, there is a cure. And it makes no damn good sense to me that my kid should be able to survive and yours can't just because you live somewhere else.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
And yet we have the ability and the power to do that. And because of our unique circumstances from whatever's there, you know, we didn't get the miracle that we prayed for and longed for. But I think it's because the miracle that we looked for lacked ambition, because we were looking for God to save one child, and God used that to save hundreds and hundreds of kids through that one event and through what happened. So again, it's made a big difference. And I think that the generosity of Gainesville, the people that have been supporting us over these years, people that are just kind of have a mom and pop foundation that have really been able to have a huge impact on the survival of kids in a country that they'll never know who helped them. And that's okay, because there's hundreds of moms and dads, and now they're kids that we've saved that have now had kids of their own. We have kids that are now going to medical school. Yeah, and so we kind of share those stories and we brought this one girl who's now in medical school, just got married. She came and kind of gave her story of when she was kind of diagnosed and what she went through when our program had first started up. So there's a chance to do real good. And again, we talked earlier on the show about some of the problems and kind of the difficult times that we live in, but these are truly remarkable times too, and that you can really have a huge impact on lives of kids and save lives, you know, just because there are these tools and these ways and relationships that we can use to really express ways in which we can help people in a very tangible way, where you can look at a kid and say, you're alive today because I supported this X, Y, and Z and did that. So again, we're super excited. We do our annual event. We had to put it off last year.
How can our viewers
send
help?
1 million people to the event
Yes.
and tell everybody to give
yes.
all the money they can to support the foundation.
Elio, that's your job.
Yeah, so Yeah, so it's been exciting. So we do our annual event. We had to put it off. We normally do it in February. We did it last year, which was the normal time that we do it. It was like the last normal weekend before COVID hit, February of 2020. Sort of, I think it was the third weekend. Then after that, we just held on like everybody else did. But now we're doing our first one, so we'll be at the Hilton on June 5th and in the evening. Go online to curegracefoundation.org, and you can go there and buy tickets, make a donation, kind of get more information. You can send us a message. We'll kind of respond and kind of let you know more about the foundation. We put all our stuff out there. Our tax forms and tax returns are all very public, and you can look us up and kind of get all the information that
Is
you
the
need.
event, I'm trying to read and my eyesight's so bad I can hardly see, but is the event, is it a dinner or what?
Yeah.
what
I'm
happens?
sorry. So it's kind of what we do is our annual report, but it's a dinner with music. Elio's going to be there, so you know it's going to be a fiesta.
right.
Oh, yeah.
And so what we do during the event is that we have a dinner and kind of have a sit-down dinner. Then we give a report on what we did with the money that we got the year before, kind of where we're going, and then we just tell people what we need help with and let people kind of decide, say, hey, I want to be a part of that, and how much they want to help us out. And then we just kind of have a party because there is a lot to celebrate. It seems odd celebrating something that's such a heavy story that begins, but if you follow the story through, it's actually one of the most amazing, happy stories you'll ever hear.
Well, you were right. It started off super tragic, and it ended incredibly. I mean, it's what a blessing to be able to go through that, to be able to help where you are then. You know what I mean? Like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely strikes a chord with me because I lost a sister to leukemia at age
gosh.
37.
Oh, gosh.
So
she
she wasn't a child, but
Yeah, it doesn't.
as you started talking, I'm going, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know, it
Loss is
brings
loss.
back, you know, memories that are good and bad.
Yeah.
But, you know, if there's a way I can help to help this foundation, I think that's the message is, you know, I can do that for her and for Kira Grace's memory and all that. So I don't know if I'm in town, but I'm going to try to.
Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to try to go. And
That's incredible. Thank you
attend.
for sharing that story.
Yeah,
I think that is.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
That
thank
that
you.
is
Thanks for having me.
absolutely.
yes, thank you so
Yeah,
much
no,
for
no,
being
thanks for
here.
having
I'm starstruck.
It's
a little bit.
you know, it's
and I don't get starstruck.
We get to
usually.
have we have a lot of fun on this show normally. We kind of cut
Yeah.
loose and just kind of act a little goofy. It is really nice to be able to bring somebody like you on to talk about something that's ongoing and so serious in our own community, like COVID, but also how to be the best part of who we are in this town is to help one another, like you said.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great organizations and causes and ways for us to help. This is certainly one of them. So thank you for
appreciate
kind of
that.
sharing that.
No, it's no problem at all. And again, Gainesville, this would have been hard to start in any other community because Gainesville is such a giving community.
It's very special.
And it's very special. And I think it's been a way where we can move forward to really be able to get what is a hard story to hear at the beginning, but then when you kind of follow it through, it's just a great story.
awesome. Yeah.
It's a great story that nobody in their right mind would choose to live through, but
No.
you don't get to choose those.
Sure.
And so this is where we are. And again,
Well, I think this says a lot
where
about
we
you
are.
and your wife too. You guys could have obviously turned your attention to your son and the rest of that, but you could have left that experience right where it was, and instead you turned it into something that saved
Awesome.
countless other lives and will again. So
Yeah.
that's super exciting. That's great.
That's her.
No,
That
that
is-
is not.
Who
That
is
is
that?
not. That is one of the children that we serve in the
Oh.
Dominican. Yeah, so that is not her. But Kira's picture is on the website there. So you look and then you'll see Kira.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah, she's there.
So we are out of time, and
Great.
I just wanted to thank everybody for watching. Remember to hit like on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn, and pretty much next week we'll go back to our regularly scheduled format.
Yes,
but-
and I'll save our announcement for next week, the tease for next week. I'll save it because I think I want the focus to stay on exactly what we were talking about.
Yes.
So
So there you
tease
go.
next week. But join us next Tuesday as we have a pretty fun, exciting thing to talk about.
I'm excited. So thanks for watching. Thank you to the Fiesta Media and Elio for being amazing always. And we will see you soon. Have a great rest of your week, folks.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Michael.
Thank you.
That was
Wow.
Cool. All right. Good.
Holy
Dude.
cow.
Okay.